Hello and welcome to another episode of Heaton Lodge Junction's construction. I think this is episode 4. My name's Simon George. Now, where do you think we are this time? Well, we're actually back at Heaton Lodge Junction and I am in front of the very fence that was captured in that well-known photograph of Terry Jamieson's back in 1982 when I was sat here as a 12-year-old child watching, I think it was a Class 56 come past with a big coal train. Anyway, the foliage had been cut back, so quite happily I can see it now. Last time I came, you couldn't even get near it, but here we are. Anyway, we're going to be going down to the basement in a minute because there's a lot to cover today. I want to show you, first of all, what 300 Dapol HAAs look like on the layout. There's a lot of weathering to do on those. Talking of which, I'm also going to show you how to speed weather a wagon, of which I did so many, well, hundreds of them, so I had to work fast as usual. I'm going to be going through that. We're going to be going back to the static grass subject again because that's had so much positive feedback, and I'm going to show you just how to make it even more realistic in a short space of time. I'm going to show you Tim Horn's power station building on the layout, which is just enormous and again conveys some sort of scale of what I'm trying to achieve here. And there are days, by the way, I walk into that basement and I think, what the hell am I doing? But anyway, it's all good fun. What else is there? Yes, roads. Now, lots of people, when Heaton Lodge Junction first went out to the public, commented on the roads and how realistic they were, which was nice of them. I want to show you exactly how I did that. How to do it quickly again, because speed is everything. And you can even cover your existing roads if you're not happy with them on your layout with the technique that I'm going to show you. So without further ado, let's get down to the basement and get cracking. So here we are again, back in the basement. Now, I just wanted to give you a bit of a update on progress, but I think the best way I can do that is just by panning around and just showing you the fact that I've spent the last 8 or 9 hours opening, I think, goodness knows, 2 trunks full of Dapol stock, namely HAAs that go behind the, well, form up the MGR trains. I've done that because I just wanted to show you really the scale of what I'm trying to really capture here. Right in the distance, you can just see the station building. But if we pan round, we can see unloaded empty MGR trains in the far sidings, and then over to the left here we can see the loaded ones tailing straight off into the distance. But what does give you an impression of scale is this, which is, would you believe it, the shell of the power station building, the turbine house to be more accurate, which Tim Horn was building in the last video. It almost goes to the roof, would you believe, which incidentally is going to cause a lot of problems because the cooling towers, I think I've mentioned this before, are 2.5 metres high, double the size of what we've just looked at, and they're not going to go in at all. They will only be assembled when the layout is on tour in 18 months or so's time. But panning round again, we'll just have a little wander down. There's an awful lot of coal here, or at least crushed coal. I am going to redo some of these coal loads because I'm not really happy with them. But what I'm taking it down this way for is to show you these. Now, these girder bridges are going to be about 20 metres long, and they will carry the single track line of for the loaded MGR trains. And when they disappear off the other end, they will come out into the MGR unloading facility, a real one of which is popping up on your screen now. But yeah, there'll also be at least a 25 metre very gradual incline carried upwards by these, what will be these kind of look like a letter A, but they're concrete piers. And they're based on, again, the picture that's probably just popping up on your screen now. But yeah, that should look really good. But this really gives you the true width of the full extension of this layout. And again, there's going to be a lot of paint, a lot of paint needed for that turbine house. There is another building being built in front of that, which is known as the generator building, and obviously the cooling towers are going to go either side. So hopefully that gives you some idea of progress. I'm going to keep this stock here because when I come down in the morning and I'm kind of scratching my head thinking, why the hell am I doing this? This kind of gives me some inspiration, so it will all be staying. I'm going to have to do a lot of moving around when I get ballasting, but hey ho, that is a different story. Let's just have a quick look at the other side. Right, we've just nipped round the other side, and let's just have a look at everything from here, from this perspective. Another gantry tower, obviously. We've got all the empty HAAs this side in the foreground. There's an EWS train made up of HEAs from Dapol as well. And then, of course, in the background, we've got the fully loaded HEAs, which will eventually run up over those girder bridges, as I've just said, and into the unloading house. I think I might have mentioned before, but I've got a good friend who's working on the Dapol HAAs to make them drop the coal out onto a conveyor, and it will go right across the marshalling yard and into a storage facility at the other side. Now, the other thing that you're going to see on Heaton Lodge Junction in abundance is going to be diesel locos that are fitted with smoke units. We all love the sound, but the smoke, we don't see enough of it, in my opinion. Now, going back a couple of years, I borrowed a Class 37 from a friend in Lincolnshire who kindly brought it along. And I think it was actually at Harrogate, for those of you that went to the exhibition there. But goodness me, did that pump out some clag. There's going to be a lot more of that when this layout goes out again. So, yeah, bring your gas masks and just take a look at this. Okay, so we're going to start the first part of this video on how to make realistic roads. Now, going back to when I started phase 1 of Heaton Lodge, the road network on that side wasn't that great, but this side that we're working on now, there's going to be a lot more roads. And it's important to note that the technique I'm going to show you now is really applicable to all gauges. So if you work in N gauge, if you work in Dapol O gauge, or of course O, which I do, makes no difference whatsoever. You can still make realistic roads using this method. Let's start by going through the ingredients we need to make it, and they're probably a little bit different from what you're normally used to. The paints that I use are simply gloss number 5. That's the main one. I think it's dark Admiralty grey, and it's gloss for a good reason. I'll tell you why when we come to that stage. We've got some metallic paint, which is just to paint the grates in the road if you want to add these, and that's just an option. And matte number 27 just gives us a slightly different shade of tarmac so we can make what looks like trenches that have been filled in, etc., etc. But the main paint you need is gloss number 5 dark Admiralty grey. Tools, usual things we all modelers have to hand: scissors, scalpel, some paintbrushes, some gravel as well, or some ballast. That would be helpful but not essential. You do need some talcum powder, strange ingredient, I know, but I'll come on to that in a minute. A bit of grey primer, which is to spray the grates before you paint them. And we've got some options here as well. I use some of this, it's like a wet look. What's it called now? Let's have a look. It's just a spill wet effect, just to give puddles, you know, a realistic vibe. And we've got some black, or in fact it's dark grey weathering powder. That's this one I'm using is from Vallejo. The ingredients obviously are coming up on your page too. We also need some DAS clay. I use DAS because it doesn't crack as it's drying. It's really good to work with. A little bit more expensive, but I think it's about £5 for a pack like this one. PVA glue or a glue gun, doesn't matter which. Scalpel we've already been through, and just some plain card. The card I use is probably 2 or 3 millimeters thick, but as long as it's got some stiffness to it, it's absolutely fine. It'll work really well. So again, the ingredients are coming up on your screen, and let's have a look at the first steps to making really realistic roads. Okay, so let's start with the piece of card we've just seen before. What we're going to do is, because this is an O gauge road, they generally need to be about 20 centimeters wide, which is a good sort of representation of a B road or a country road, a country lane. Obviously, if you're modelling double O, you need to be about half that. So 10 centimeters wide is a good kind of rule of thumb for a road in double O gauge. Now, just earlier, I have cut a strip 25 centimeters wide, which, as I've just said, is for O gauge. Now, I've also cut this strip here, which is going to represent the camber in the road, and it's something that a lot of us modelers miss off roads, but without a camber on a model road, it just doesn't look right, in my opinion. You never know that it's there, but it kind of just gives it that effect that, you know, smacks of realism. So all we're going to do with this strip of card, which incidentally is 1 centimeters wide, half a centimeter obviously if you're in double O, you need to just glue that down the middle like so, just with PVA or a hot glue gun, etc., etc. Again, I've just done one a few minutes ago. I'll come to these holes in a minute. That's already glued on, and then we're going to turn it over and we're going to secure each side of the road. Now, you can use PVA for that, you can use a hot glue gun, but just for the fact I'm making a video and I want to do it quickly, I'm going to use a power stapler. Right, so you probably won't be able to see it on the screen, but you've got a really nice kind of camber there, which is, as I've just said, pretty important. Now, these holes here are for grates. I do use grates, and in the early part of this video, when I was talking about the ingredients and all the tools you need, I didn't mention grates, but you can get these from 10 Commandments, the brass ones, which I prefer. And once they've been cut out from the fret, and they're not, by the way, you don't have to use these, but they do add a bit of realism. You probably won't be able to see that, but you've just got an O gauge grate here, a couple of them a manhole cover. And all I've done earlier is just simply to draw around and just cut with a scalpel, just some holes out so we can put the grates in there later. So that is basically an option, but it does add a bit of realism. Right, let's go on to the paint. Right, paint. Now, I've just opened a tin of dark Admiralty Grey number 5, which is a Humbrol colour, and it's gloss. And there's a reason it's gloss. I'll come on to that in a second. But do you know what? I always enjoy this bit, but it's just simply a question of layering a really thick coat of this over our piece of road. Right, there we go. Now, texture. Even in O gauge and double O, you need a light texture, but you don't want something as, in my opinion, you don't want something as aggressive as sandpaper. So I just use talc. And I also forgot to mention, it's on your screen, but I forgot to mention you could do with a sieve for the talc as well. So it's just a question of putting a bit of talc in. Don't worry if there's too much. Through the sieve. And we're going to cover this road in lots of talc, and you can see why now I choose gloss paint, because gloss takes much longer to dry and it also soaks up the talc way better than matte. The matte would have already started drying now, but this doesn't, and it also smells extremely nice, but that's not what we are doing this for. But you can see here how the paint has already soaked it up. And that is really the basis of our road. Okay, we're coming back to the road now. It's almost dry. It's probably been a couple of hours, but you can see already the texture which is made up of that talc, which gives it a really, really realistic effect. And we're going to go to the second stage in a second. I just wanted to show you basically what to expect after stage one. And what I'm going to do next is just to give it a light brush. Now I've used, just to get this excess talc off, I've used this, what have I used? Dustpan and brush, can you believe? Because I can't find a paintbrush. But anyway, same effect. You can see how you get these different colours, which is what we're after. And this is already beginning to look really good. Now I'm going to introduce a bit more colour by way of this. I'm using dark slate grey from Vallejo, which is just a weathering powder, but you can use anything. Humber will do a good range. You just need a dark grey, not black really, but just a dark grey. I'm going to do this left-handed for the camera, but it's just a case of, and you can see why sometimes on videos you make a mess of something, or you think you do. But it doesn't matter, because it always turns out all right with modelling. Okay, so just trying to swap hands at the same time. Give it another brush. Again, I'm using this, but you can use, I would use just an ordinary paintbrush. Let's have a better look at it. So you can just see the marks. Right, so after adding the dark slate grey weathering powder, I'm just going to paint down the middle some normal PVA. Cheap PVA, don't need anything special, just a little bit down the middle like that. Reason for this is, if you look at any B road, any country lane, the middle where the wheels of the cars don't often go is where you get all the gravel, and we're just going to use basic ballast just to do a little line, just to replicate, as I've just said, where car wheels or truck wheels do not go. You don't want too much, just a bit. And incidentally, you can do this down the side as well, which is dead easy by. You can never get this wrong though, that's the thing about doing this, because there's so many different variations if you look at the real thing. It really doesn't matter. Where's my ballast gone? Here we go. Oops. Done it all over myself now. Right, we're going to leave that to dry for 15-20 minutes and we'll come back to it and see what it looks like. Okay, we are almost there now. We're just going to add some details. I know that road looks a little bit shiny on your screen, but fear not, because we're going to rectify that in a minute. But what we're going to do now is just add these metal grates that I mentioned earlier. And I've just taken some DAS clay and I'm just going to infill those little holes with a bit of DAS. You'll see why again in a second. The grates and the manhole covers just add a lot if you can be bothered to do it, which not everybody can, but they really do add, as I've just said, a lot to it. So we've got a grate here. I don't think you can see that very well, but that is going in the middle here. Just using tweezers just to pad it in. In fact, no, let's just use my fingers instead. Did I make that hole big enough? Well, again, you know, how many grates do you see that are a bit skew width and everything? Doesn't matter. It's just a case of getting it in there. There we go. And then we're going to use, that's actually a manhole cover, not a grate. This is a grate. And we're going to just stick that in there like that. Now, nearly at the end, but I just wanted to share with you another trick which I use often to for trenches. And all I'm going to do, in fact, I'm just going to get a steel ruler, and all we need to do is just put the ruler, and with a scalpel we're just going to make a trench, or a filled in trench, and we're going to use the scalpel like so. And then, in fact, we'll make another one off here. Let's have a look. I mean, how many roads do you see that haven't got trenches in? They nearly all have. Like so. And then we can even, using a slightly different paint, I'm using, if you remember in the ingredients, there was another tarmac colour which just gives a little bit more variety. Now I know you shouldn't stir paint with tweezers, but for the sake of speed, let's quickly do it. Now you need to be a little bit more careful here with a steady hand, because all we're going to do is just going to mark this trench, or fill it in with slightly different coloured paint than the one we've used for the whole road, because again the tarmac used for replacement tarmac is not the same as the original, of course. Again, it's good if you can just get it fairly straight. I've not got a bad hand, but let's just give you a close-up of that. So the varnish is dry, and I've succumbed to temptation because I couldn't help. I wasn't going to go this far, but I'll just show you very briefly, just to add another little bit of realism. That screw there is just for the static grass gun, and what do we get growing in the centre of country lanes and even the odd B road? We get static grass. Well, we get grass. Here we go. Let's just stick a bit on here. Again, looks a mess, but don't worry. Okay, and we're just going to sprinkle a bit of our old friend, the earth powder, in the middle of it. And what this does, as I said in the video about static grass, we're going to come back onto that in a sec, is just move that. In fact, I don't need it now. Okay, just get rid of that. Right, we'll just let this dry for a few secs, give it a brush, and let's just come back to it in a couple of minutes. Okay, so the grass has just, well, I've just dried the PVA with a hairdryer just to speed things up, but the grass is there in the middle. We've got the grates in there. These grates I'm actually going to repaint later because they're not really silver enough, but it doesn't matter. They give you the idea of what I'm trying to achieve. The only other thing that I would add is present round grates a lot is water. So I just add a little bit of, now this takes a little bit to dry. It's the spill water effect, which again you can get from any retailer. Vallejo do it as well. Just put it on the sides. It will dry and just give a wet gloss appearance, just as water congregates rather round grates. So I'm going to finish off there for the time being, and we're going to come to this in another episode, and I'm going to show you how to add even more detail. But before I do, just remember that this is for this method that I've just shown you is applicable for all gauges. I've made the road quite wide because it's O gauge, but as I said earlier, it's just the same for Dapol O as it is for N gauge 2. And I hope you think that's quite realistic, because set up in its environment, it will look really, really good. So here we have the finished article. The PVA glue has dried, the static grass has obviously dried into it. We've got the grates and the manhole cover, which incidentally I've just painted silver just so that they stand out a bit more instead of metallic grey. But that's basically it. I think that's pretty realistic. We've got the texture there, we've got the static grass, great country road, and something which is applicable to all gauges, the method that I've just shown you, but also you can do it on top of any existing roads you've got that you've kind of never really liked. You can hopefully improve them by the technique I've just shown you. So there we go. Enjoy. Okay, speed weathering. Without further ado, let's go down to the workshop and give a Shell TTA tank a blast with the airbrush. But you can see from these two examples, the EWS HAA on the left and the one on the right. The one on the left obviously is straight out of the box. The one on the right, I've just spent literally 5 minutes with an airbrush. So let's just give you some pointers on how to speed weather. Okay, so here we are with a Dapol TTA, one of many that I've got to weather. In fact, probably about, there's about 90 to weather so far. So as you can guess, I'm going to do this pretty quickly. Now, I use just the two frame colours that already popped up on your screen, namely Precision Paints Frame Dirt, or any frame dirt will do, and a dirty black, which again, I'm using Precision Paints. But this won't take me long, and just with any airbrush, I've got an Iwata, but you can use whatever you want. This is just going to be really quick, and the frame dirt is just going to go along the frame, surprisingly. And already, even with that, it's starting to look way more realistic. You can probably just hear the compressor. It's going to come in and out. And I'm get my words out. My spray booth is not like some people I know, that it's like an operating theatre, I'm afraid, but it does the job, and that's all we need. So I'm just going to put, as I've just done, some frame dirt all along the frames, all over the wheels, and I'll probably just put a little bit just on the top as well, just to dumb everything down. And as again, I've just said, it already looks better, and I've not even got onto the dirty black yet. So I think that is it for the frame dirt. Let's move on to dirty black. Okay, so we've got a cup full of dirty black precision paints. Again, I'm using enamels. I just get on better with enamels than what I do acrylics. And I'm just going to give this a really light misting of dirty black. Spin it round, and it immediately takes off that plasticky appearance which you get straight out the box. TTAs were always pretty filthy, and in fact, to the point where a lot of the big brands, Shell being one of them, actually took the name off them. I think they must have been quite embarrassed. But you can't go too far with dirty black. I think that said, that is probably just about far enough. Okay, so we'll let that dry for 20 minutes, half an hour, because we've only put a very thin layer on. And let's just then go to replicating the oil running down the sides. Back in a sec. Right, so we're going to go with the Vallejo acrylic oil stains, which is just what it says on the tin. It just mimics the oil stains that come down the side of TTAs. But they're great for any locos, just giving oil splatters or whatever. So all I'm going to do here, I've just filled the airbrush, the enamel paint is dry, and I'm just going to go up and down. I'm just going to give the springs a bit of a going over as well. You don't even need a steady hand for this, to be honest. It went everywhere, oil on TTAs. You can probably see I've got a singular run down the middle, but it really doesn't matter because when it's dry, it all looks fine. So we'll let that dry, and do you know what? That is just about it. What I would do, and I won't show you on the video, is just give it a quick airbrush of satin varnish as well. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But in this case, in fact, for the video, we'll leave it off. But we'll wait till this dries and then come back to it. Okay, so here we have one finished Dapol TTA. And to be quite honest with you, I'm really pleased with that. Just 3 colours. We've got Frame Dirt by Precision Paints. We've got Dirty Black covering the bodywork or the tank itself by Precision Paints. And we've got Vallejo Oil Stains, which just goes down the middle, as you can guess. But to be quite honest with you, to me, it looks great. Big rake of those, or even a short rake of these, because I think these TTAs actually went round and delivered the oil to engine depots, so it's a great model. Now, the gorse on Heaton Lodge Junction has been the subject of many questions over the years, so I am actually going to feature how to make realistic gorse in a future video, probably the next one actually, but we're not here to talk about that just now. We're here to talk about Heljan's new 50-foot inspection saloon. Now, obviously, this is the EWS version. It comes, I believe, talking to Ben at Heljan, in about 10 different liveries. It's due to hit the shops imminently, if not already there. What a great model it is. I think most of the railway companies after World War II actually made their own versions of these. EWS inherited, I think this is the LMS version. And as I've just said, it's a scale 50 foot long. It's really well detailed as well. If I can get the camera down, we can see inside. It's got the seats, it's got the furniture and everything else. What I'm going to do with this is just give it a good weathering for the next video and just feature it a bit more prominently, because I do want to talk a bit more about this. It's just such a versatile piece of rolling stock, and again, it's just about to be released by Heljan, and we'll talk about it a bit more in the next video. So, just a couple of other bits of information. If you've been toying with the idea for, I don't know, some time about having your own layout built, especially one to the standard of Heaton Lodge Junction, something exquisite is what I'm trying to say, then please do let me know. I am taking commissions at the moment. The reason for that is because I figured that I'm here 8 hours a day, so what's 2 hours going to make added on 10 hours a day? It really makes no difference. So please drop me a line if you want to discuss it and we'll have a chat. Other thing is, just again, to all of you that contributed to the crowdfunding, I can't thank you enough. It's been a massive help. Again, £100 gets you 2 tickets for free for basically as many times as you want to visit the layout when it goes on tour in 18 months or so time. So thanks for that. Just remains for me to say thanks for watching this video. There's going to be a few more of them now. They're going to be released every 2 weeks instead of every month. And I'm going to cover separate subjects in terms of how-to videos, specifically on making scenery, such as the roads we've covered today, more static grass, stone walls, everything you can think of is going to be covered. So I'm going to be spilling my secrets. So again, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next month.